During the 18th century, the French Revolution was underway. The Third Estate, which made up 97% of the population, was forced to pay the majority of the taxes because of an outdated tax system that the French government was still using. It gave the First and Second Estates, the clergy and the nobles respectively, privileges allowing them not to pay many of the taxes, such as a tally, which taxed how much land they owned and how many people lived on the property. The Third Estate, being non-privileged, were forced to pay the remaining taxes, but they were incapable of doing so. In 1789, Louis XVI called an emergency meeting of the Estates General, where members from all three classes could advise the king. During the Estates General, the First and Second Estates decided to vote by order, one vote per estate rather than by head, or by person. The First and Second Estates voted to increase taxes on the Third Estate. These decisions angered the members of the Third Estate who believed their rights were being violated. Thereafter, the Third Estate formed a new National Assembly to make laws for the French people. The National Assembly swore to a tennis court oath, promising a new constitution and limitations on the king's power.
The King of France had militarized the city for a while before the attack. France's citizens felt a sense of menace as a result and were resentful towards their king. Before the riot at the Bastille, a group of French revolutionaries headed up to the Hôtel des Invalides, where guns and cannons were stored. They looted the buildings, but soon realized there were no gunpowder. On July 12th, 250 barrels of gunpowder were transferred to Bastille. Now armed with this information, as well as actual arms, the revolutionaries and rioters hatched a plan to loot the prison. The prison of Bastille was seen as a symbol of the Bourbon monarchy tyranny, as it was used to jail political dissidents or young people who needed discipline. The Bastille had 8 30-meter-high towers, which dominated the Parson skyline, and was surrounded by moats more than 80 feet wide. The prison of Bastille contained 7 people, and was being guarded by military governor Bernard René Jourdan de Landay. He had brought his men into the massive fortress and raised its 2 drawbridges 2 days prior to the attack on the prison.
On 14th July 1789, a mob of citizens of the Third Estate armed with muskets, swords, and other makeshift weapons gathered around the prison. They were led by Pierre Hulin, Stanislas Maillard, and Jacob Ely. The mob demanded the protectors of the prison to give them the gunpowder being stored there, but the protectors refused. At first, Lannes and his men were able to hold back the mob, but because the mob grew larger and larger, Lannes eventually raised a white flag in surrender, and he and his men were taken into custody.
Once he arrived at a hotel where he was to be tried by a revolutionary council, he was instead murdered by a mob. His head was cut off and paraded around the streets on a stick. The attack on Bastille symbolized the end of the Ancien regime. The prison was soon destroyed on the order of the revolutionary government.